Ezekiel 40. Until Ezekiel 48. Ezekiel 40. Ezekiel was taken to Jerusalem. It was the 10th day of the new year, which was the 5th year after we'd been taken into exile. In the 14th year after Jerusalem was captured, on the day I felt the powerful presence of the Lord, and he carried me away. In a vision, God took me to the land of Israel and put me on a high mountain. I saw in front of me a group of buildings that looked like a city. He took me closer, and I saw a man who shone like bronze. He was holding a linen tape measure and a measuring rod and was standing by a gateway. He said to me, "Watch, mortal man, listen carefully and pay attention, close attention to everything I show you, because this is why you were brought here. You are to tell the people of Israel everything you see." What I saw was the temple, and there was a wall around it. The man took the measuring rod, which was 10 feet long, and measured the wall. It was 10 feet high and 10 feet thick. Then he went to the gateway that faced east. He went up the steps, and at the top he measured the entrance. It was 10 feet deep. Beyond there was a passageway, which had 3 guard rooms on each side. Each of the rooms was square 10 feet on each side, and the walls between them were 8 feet thick. Beyond the guard rooms there was a pathway 10 feet long and led to an entrance room which faced the temple. He measured this room and found it was 14 feet deep. It formed the end of the gateway which was nearest to the temple, and at its far end the walls were 4 feet thick. These guard rooms on each side of the pathway were all the same size, and the walls between them were all of the same thickness. Next, the man measured the wall, the width of the pathway and the gateway. It was 22 feet altogether, and the space between the open gates was 16 feet. In front of each of the guard rooms there was low wall 20 inches high and 20 inches thick. The rooms were 10 feet square. Then he measured the distance from the back wall of one room to the back wall of the room across the pathway from it, and it was 42 feet. The room at the far end led out to a courtyard, and he measured that room and found it was 34 feet wide. The total length of the gateway from the outside wall of the gate to the far side of the last room was 84 feet. There were small openings in the outside walls of all the rooms, and also in the inner walls between the rooms were the palm trees carved on the inner walls and faced the passageway. The man took me through the gateway into the courtyard. There were 30 rooms built against the corner wall, and in front of them there was an area paved with stones which extended around the courtyard. This outer courtyard was at a lower level than the inner courtyard. There was a gateway at a higher level that led to the inner courtyard. The man measured the distance between the 2 gateways, and it was 168 feet. Then the man measured the gateway on the north side that led into the outer courtyard. The 3 guard rooms on each side of the pathway, the walls between them, and the entrance room all had the same measurements as those in the east gateway. The total length of the gateway was 84 feet and the width and 42 feet. The entrance room, the windows, and the carved palm trees were like those in the east gate. Here 7 steps led up to the gate, and the entrance room was at the end facing the courtyard. Across the courtyard from the north gateway was another gateway leading to the inner courtyard, just as there was on the east side. The man measured the distance between these 2 gateways, and it was 168 feet. The south gate next, the man took me to the south side, and there we saw another gateway. He measured its inner walls and its entrance room, and they were the same as the others. There were windows in the rooms of the gateway, just as in the others. The total length of the gateway was 84 feet, and the wide 42 feet. 7 steps led up to it, and its entrance room was also at the end, facing the courtyard. There were palm trees carved on the inner walls that faced the pathway. Here too there was a gateway leading to the inner courtyard. The men measured the distance to the second gateway, and it was 168 feet. The inner courtyard, the south gate. The man took me through the south gate into the inner courtyard. He measured the gateway, and it was the same size as the gateway in the outer wall. Its guard rooms, its entrance room, and its inner walls were the same size as those in the other gateways. There were also windows as in rooms of the gateway. The total length was 84 feet and the width 42 feet. Its entrance room faced the other courtyard, and palm trees were carved on the walls along the pathway. 8 steps led up to the gate. The inner courtyard, the east gate. The man took me through the east gate into the inner courtyard. He measured the gateway, and it was the same size as the others. Its guard rooms, its entrance room, and its inner walls measured the same as those in other gateways. There were windows all around and in the entrance room also. The total length was 84 feet, and the width 42 feet. The entrance room faced the outer courtyard. Palm trees were carved on the walls along the pathway. 8 steps led up to this gate. Then the man took me to this north gateway. He measured it, and it was the same size as the others like them. It was also had guest room, guard rooms, decorated in the walls, the entrance room, and windows all around. In total length was 84 feet, and it was wide 42. The entrance room faced the outer courtyard. Palm trees were carved in the walls along the passage. Each step led up to this gate. Building near the north gate. In the outer courtroom, there was an annex attached to the inner gateway on the north side. It opened into the entrance room that faced the courtyard, and there they washed the carcasses of the animals to be burned whole as sacrifices. In the entrance room, there were 4 tables, 2 on each side of the room. It was on these tables that they killed the animals to be offered as sacrifices, either to be burned whole or to be sacrificed for sin or the repayment offerings. Outside the room, there were 4 similar tables, 2 on either side of the entrance of the north gate. Altogether, there were 8 tables on which the animals to be sacrificed were killed, 4 inside the room and 4 out in the courtyard. The 4 tables and the annex used to prepare the offerings to be burnt whole were of cut stone. They were 20 inches high, and their tops were 30 inches square. All the equipment used in killing the sacrificed animals was kept on these tables. Ledges 3 inches wide ran around the edge of tables. All the meat to be offered in sacrifice was placed on the tables. Then he brought me into the inner court, and there were 2 rooms opening on the inner court, one south beside the north gate, and the other facing north beside the south gateway. The man told me that the room which faced south was for the priests who served in the temple, and the room which faced north was for the priests who served at the altar. All the priests are descended from Zadok. They are the only members of the tribe of Levi who are permitted to go into the Lord's presence to serve him. The man measured the inner courtyard, and it was 168 feet square. The temple was on the west side, and in front of it was an altar. Then he took me into the entrance room of the temple, and he measured the entranceway. It was 9 feet deep and 24 feet, with walls 5 feet thick on either side. Steps led up to the entrance room, which was 34 feet wide and 20 feet deep. There were 2 columns, one on each side of the entrance. Next, the man took me into the central room, the holy place. He measured the pathway into it. It was 10 feet deep and 18 feet wide, with walls 8 feet thick on either side. He measured the room itself. It was 68 feet long and 34 feet wide. Then he went to the innermost room. He measured the pathway into it. It was 3 feet deep and 10 feet wide, with walls on either side. 12 feet thick. He measured the room itself. And it was 34 square. The room was beyond the central room. Then he said to me, "This is the most holy place." The man measured the thickness of the inner wall of the temple building, and it was 10 feet. Against the wall all around the temple was a series of small rooms, 7 feet wide. Those rooms were in 3 stories, with 30 rooms on each floor. The temple outer wall on each floor was thinner than on the floor below, so that the rooms could rest on the walls without being entered into it. And so the temple walls, when they seen from the outside, seemed to have the same thickness, all the way to the top against the temple outer wall on the outside of the rooms. 2 wide stairways were built so that it was possible to go from the lower story to the middle and the upper stories. The outside wall of these rooms was 8 feet thick, and there was 1 door into the rooms on the north side of the temple, and 1 into those on the south side. I saw that there was a terrace 8 feet wide around the temple. It was 10 feet above the ground, and it was leveled with the foundation of the rooms by the temple walls. Between the terrace and the buildings used by priests, there was an opening space 34 feet across along the sides of the temple. At far end of the open space on the west side of the temple, there was a building 150 feet long and 116 feet wide. Its walls and 9 feet thick all around. Total measurement of the temple building. The man measured the outside of the temple, and it was 168 feet long. And from the back of the temple, across the opening space to the far side of the building to the west, the distance was also 168 feet. The distance across the front of the temple, including the open space on either side, was also 168 feet. He measured the length of the building to the west, including its galleries on both sides, and it was also 168 feet. Details of the temple building. The entrance room of the temple, the holy place, and the most holy place were all paneled with wood from the floor to the windows. These windows could be covered. The inner side walls of the temple, up as high as above the doors, were completely covered with carvings of palm trees and winged creatures. Palm trees alternate with creatures, one of the following the other, all the way around the room. Each creature had two faces: a human face that was turned toward the palm tree on one side, and a lion's face that was turned toward the tree on the other side. It was like this all around the wall. From the floor above the doorsteps of the holy place were square. In front of the entrance of the most holy place, there was something that looked like a wooden altar. It was 5 feet and 4 feet wide. Its corners, posts, its base, and its sides were all made of wood. The man said to me, "This is the whole table which stands in the presence of the Lord." There was a door at the end of the passageway to the holy place, and one also at the end of the passageway to the most holy place. They were double doors that swung open. In the middle, there were palm trees and winged creatures carved on the doors of the holy place, just as there were on the walls. And there was a wooden covering over the outside of the doorway of the entrance room. At the sides of this room, there were windows, and the walls were decorated with palm trees. The buildings next to the temple, Ezekiel 20:42. The man took me into the outer courtroom and led me to the building on the north side of the temple, not far from the building at the west of the temple. This building was 168 feet long and 184 feet wide. On one side, it faced the space 34 feet wide, which was alongside the temple, and on the other side, it faced the pavement of the outer courtyard. It was built on 3 levels, each one set further back than the one below it. Along the north side of the building was a pathway 16 feet wide and 168 feet long, with entrances on the sides. The rooms at the upper level of the building were narrower than those of the middle and lower levels because they were set further back. The rooms at all 3 levels were on terraces and were not supported by columns like the other buildings. In the courtyard at the lower level, the outer wall of the buildings was solid for 84 feet, half in the left, half in its left, and there was rooms in the remaining 84 feet. At the top level, there were rooms in the entire length of the building. Below these rooms, at the east end of the building, where the wall of the courtyard began, there was an entrance into the outer courtyard. At the south side of the temple, there was an identical building, not far from the building at the west end of the temple. In front of the rooms, there was a passageway just like the one on the north side. It had the same measurements, the same design, and the same kind of entrances. There was a door under the rooms on the south side of the building at the east and where the walls began. The man said to me, "Both these buildings are holy. In them, the priests who enter the room, Lord's presence, eat the holiest offerings because the rooms are holy. The priests were placed the holiest offerings there, the offerings of grain and the sacrifices offered for sin as a repayment offerings. When the priests had been in the temple and want to go to the outer courtyard, they must leave in these rooms the holy clothing they wear while serving the Lord. They must put on other clothes before going out to the area where the people gather. When a man finished measuring inside the temple area, he took me out through the east gate and then measured the outside of the area. He took the measuring rod and measured the east side, and it was 84 feet. Then he measured the north side, the south side, and the west side. Each side had the same length, 84 feet, so that the wall enclosed a square 84 feet on each side. The wall served to separate what the holy from what was not. Okay. Ezekiel 43. The Lord returned to the temple. Then a man took me to the gate that faces east, and there I saw coming from the east the dazzling light of the presence of the God of Israel. God's voice sounded like the roar of the sea, and the earth shone with the dazzling light. This vision was the one I had seen when God came to destroy Jerusalem, and when I saw by the Chebar River. Then I threw myself face downward on the ground. The dazzling light passed through the east gate and went into the temple. The Lord's Spirit lifted me up and took me into the inner courtyard, where I saw the temple was filled with the glory of the Lord. The man stood beside me there, and I heard the Lord speak to me out of the temple. Mortal man, here is my throne. I will live here among the people of Israel and rule them forever. Neither the people of Israel nor the kings will ever again disgrace my holy name by worshiping other gods or by burying the corpse of their dead kings. The kings built the door sills and doorposts of their palaces right against the door sills and doorposts of my temple, so that there was only a wall between us. They disgraced my holy name by all the disgusting things they did. And so in my anger I destroyed them. Now they must stop worshiping other gods and remove the corpse of their kings. If they do, I will live among them forever. And the Lord continued, Mortal men, tell the people of Israel about the temple and let them study its plan. Make them ashamed of their sinful actions. Then if they are ashamed of what they have done, explain the plan of the temple to them, its design, its interest, and its access, its shape, the arrangement of everything in all its rules and regulations. Write all this down for them so that they can see how everything is arranged and can carry out all the rules. This is the law of the temple. All the area surrounding it on the top of the mountain is sacred and holy. These are the measurement of altar using the same unit of measure as in measuring the temple. All around the basics of the altar there was a gutter 20 inches deep and 20 inches wide, with a rim at the outside edge 10 inches high. The lowest section of the altar from the top of the base was 4 feet high, and the next section was back from the edge 20 inches all around and was 7 feet high. The section after that was also set back from the edge 20 inches all around. This top section on which the sacrifices were burnt was 7 feet high. The protections on the four corners were higher than the rest of the top. The top of the altar was a square 20 feet on each side. The middle section was also a square 20 feet on each side, and a rim of the one side edge 10 inches high. The gutter 20 inches wide. The step going up the altar were on the east side. Okay. The sovereign Lord said to me, Mortal man, listen to what I tell you. When the altar is built, you are to dedicate it by burning sacrifices on it, and by sprinkling on it the blood of the animals that were sacrificed. Those priests belonging to the tribe of Levi, who are descended from Zadok, are only ones who are to come into my presence to serve me. I, the sovereign Lord, command this: you are to give them a young bull to offer as a sacrifice for sin, and you are to take some of its blood and put it on the protections of the top corners of the altar, on the corners of the middle section of the altar, and all around its edges. In this way you will purify the altar and consecrate it. You are to take the bull that is offered as a sacrifice for sin and burn it at a specified place outside the temple area. The next day you are to take a male goat without any defects and offer it as a sacrifice for sin. Purify the altar with its blood, the same way you did with the bull. When you have finished doing that, take a young bull and a young ram, both of them without any defects, and bring them to me. The priest will sprinkle salt on them and burn them as an offering to me. Each day for 7 days you are to offer a goat, a bull, and a ram as sacrifices for sin. All of them must be without any defects. For 7 days the priests are to consecrate the altar and make it ready for use. When the week is over, the priests are to begin offering on the altar the burnt offerings and the fellowship offerings of the people. Then I will be pleased with all of you. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken. Ezekiel Chapter 44. Then the man led me to the outer gate of the east side of the temple area. The gate was closed, and the Lord said to me, this gate will stay closed and will never be opened. No human being is allowed to use it, because I, the Lord God of Israel, have entered through it. It is to remain closed. The ruling prince, however, many go there to eat a holy meal in my presence. He is to enter and leave the gateway through the entrance room at the inner end. Then the man took me through the north gate to the front of the temple. As I looked, I saw that the temple of the Lord was filled with the dazzling light of his presence. I threw myself down on the ground, and the Lord said to me, Mortal man, pay attention to everything you see and hear. I'm going to tell you the rules and regulations for the temple. Note carefully which persons are allowed to go in and out of the temple, and which persons are not allowed. Tell those rebellious people of Israel that I, sovereign Lord, will no longer tolerate the disgusting things they have been doing. They have profaned my temple by letting uncircumcised foreigners, people who do not obey me, enter the temple when the fat and the blood of the sacrifices are being offered to me. So my people have broken my covenant by all the disgusting things they have done. They have not taken charge of the sacred rituals in my temple, but instead have put foreigners in charge. I, the sovereign Lord, declare that no uncircumcised foreigner, no one who disobeys me, will enter my temple, not even a foreigner who lives among the people of Israel. The Levites are excluded from the priesthood. The Lord said to me, I am punishing those Levites who, together with the rest of the people of Israel, deserted me and worship idols. They may serve me in the temple by taking charge of the gates and by performing the work of the temple. They may kill the animals which the people offer for burnt offerings and for sacrifices, and they are to be on duty to serve the people. But because they conducted the worship of idols for the people of Israel, and in this way led the people into sin, I, the sovereign Lord, solemnly swear that they must be punished. They are not to serve me as priests or to go near anything that is holy to me or to enter the most holy place. This is the punishment for the disgusting things they have done. I am assigning them the menial work that is to be done in the temple. The sovereign Lord said those priests belonging to the tribe of Levi who are descended from Zadok, however, continued to serve me faithfully in the temple when the rest of the people of Israel turned away from me. So now they are the ones who are to serve me and come into my presence to offer me the fat and the blood of the sacrifices. They alone will enter my temple, serve my altar, and conduct the temple worship. When they enter the gateway to the inner courtyard of the temple, they are to put on linen clothing. They must not wear anything made of wool when they are on duty in the inner courtyard or in the temple, so that they won't perspire. They are to wear linen turbans and linen trousers, but no belt. Before they go to the outer courtyard, where the people are, they must first take off the clothes they wore on duty in the temple and leave them in the holy rooms. They are to put on other clothes in order to keep their sacred clothing from harming the people. Priests must neither shave their heads, nor let their hair grow long. They are to keep it proper length. Priests must not drink any wine before going into the inner courtyard. No priest may marry a divorced woman. He is to marry only an Israelite virgin or the widow of another priest. The priests are to teach my people the difference between what is holy and what is not, and between what is ritually clean and what is not. When a legal dispute arises, the priests are to decide the case according to my laws. They are to keep my religious festivals according to my rules and regulations, and they are to keep the Sabbath holy. A priest is not to become ritually unclean by touching a corpse unless it is one of his parents, one of his children, or a brother or an unmarried sister. After he has become clean again, he must wait 7 days, and then go into the inner courtyard of the temple and offer a sacrifice for the purification, so that he can serve in the temple again. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken. The priests have the priesthood as their share of what I have given Israel to be handed down from the generation to another. They are not to hold properly in Israel. I am all they need. The grain offering, the sin offering, and the repayment offering will be the priest's food, and they are to receive everything in Israel that is set apart for me. The priests are to have the best of all the first harvest and of everything else that is offered to me. Each time the people bake bread, they are to give the priest the first loaf as an offering, and my blessing will rest on their homes. The priest must not eat any bird or is killed by another animal. How many pages do we have? Only 3. 45. The Lord's portion of the country. When the land is divided to give each tribe a share, one part is to be dedicated to the Lord. It is to be 10 miles long by 8 miles wide. The entire area will be holy. In this area there is to be a square plot of the land. For the temple, 84 feet on each side, entirely surrounded by an open space 84 feet wide. Half of this area, a second section 10 miles by 4 miles, is to be measured off. It will contain the temple, the holiest place of all. It will be a holy part of the country set aside for the priests who serve the Lord in his temple. It will contain their houses and the section of the land for the temple. The other half of the area is to be set aside as the possession of the Levites who do the work. In the temple there will be towns that were for them to live in. Next to the holy area, another section 10 miles long and 2 miles wide is to be set aside for a city where any of the people of Israel may live. Land for the prince. Land is also to be set aside for the ruling prince. From the west boundary of the holy area, it will be a 10 west to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the east boundary it will extend to the eastern border of the country, so that its length will be the same as the length of one of the areas allotted to the tribes of Israel. The area will be the share the ruling prince will have in the land of Israel, so that he will no longer oppress the people, but will let the rest of the country belong to the tribes of Israel. Rulers for the prince. The sovereign Lord said, "You have sinned too long. You rulers of Israel, stop your violence and oppression. Do what is right and just. You must never drive my people off their land. I, the sovereign Lord, am telling you this. Everyone must use honest weights and measures." The ella for dry measure is to be equal to the bath for liquid measure, the standard to the homer. I don't understand these. The resultant measure are as follows. 1 homer, 10 equals 10 baths. Your weights are to be as follows. 20 gerahs, 1 shekel, 20 shekels, 1 minya. This is the basics what you are to make your offerings wheat. 160 of this harvest, barley, 160 of the harvest, olive oil, 100-year-old of your trees. Measure it by the bath, 10 baths, 1 homer, 1 quarter. I don't understand how to pronounce. Sheep, 1 sheep out of every 200 from the meadows of Israel. You are to bring grain offerings, animals to be burned whole, and animals for fellowship offerings, so that your sins will be forgiven. I, the sovereign Lord, command it. All the people of the land must take these offerings to ruling prince of Israel. It would be the duty to provide the animals to be burnt whole, the grain offerings, and the wine offerings for the whole nation of Israel. At the new moon festivals, the Sabbaths, and the other festivals, he is to provide the sin offerings, the grain offerings, the offerings to be burnt whole, and the fellowship offerings to take away the sins of the people of Israel. The festivals, the sovereign Lord said, on the first day of the first month you are to sacrifice a bull without any defects and purify the temple. The priest will take some of the blood of the sin offering and put it on the doorposts of the temple, on the 4 corners of the altar, and the priest posts of the gateways to the inner courtyard. On the 7th day of the month you are to do the same thing on behalf of anyone who sins unintentionally or through ignorance. In this way you will keep the temple holy. On the 14th day of the first month, you will begin the celebration of the Passover festival. For the 7 days, everyone will eat bread made without yeast. On the first day of the festival, the ruling prince must offer a bull as a sacrifice for his sins and for those of all the people. On each of the 7 days of the festival, he is to sacrifice to the Lord 7 bulls and 7 rams without any defects and burn them whole. He is also to sacrifice a male goat each day as a sin offering. For each bull and each ram that is sacrificed, there is to be a whole offering of half a bushel of grain and 3 quarts of olive oil. For the festival of shelters, which begins on the 15th day of the service of the 7th month, the prince will offer on each of the 7 days the 7 sacrifices for sins, the same way offering to be burned whole, and the same offering of grain and olive oil. Okay. Ezekiel 46. The sovereign Lord says the east gateway to the inner courtyard must be kept closed during the 6 working days, but it is also to be open on the Sabbath. And at the new moon festival, the ruling prince will go from the outer courtyard into the entrance room of the gateway and stand beside the posts of the gate while the priest burnt his sacrifices hole and offer his fellowship offering. There at the gate he must worship and then go back out. The gate must not be shut until evening. Each Sabbath, each new moon festival, all the people are also to bow down and worship the Lord in front of the gate. On the Sabbath, the prince is to bring to the Lord as a sacrifice to be burnt whole 6 lambs and 1 ram, all without any defects. With each ram he is to bring an offering of half a bushel of grain, and with each lamb he is to bring whatever he wants to give. For each half bushel of grain offering he is to bring 3 quarts of olive oil. At the new moon festival he will offer a young bull, 6 lambs, and a ram, all without any defects. With each bull and each ram, the offering to be a half a bushel of grain, and with each lamb, the offering is to be whatever the prince wants to give. 3 quarts of olive oil are to be offered with each half bushel of grain. The prince must leave the entrance room of the gateway and go out by the same way he went in. When people come to worship the Lord at any festival, those who enter the north gate are to leave by the south gate after they have worshipped, and those who enter by the south gate are to leave by the north gate. No one may go out the same way they entered, but must leave by the opposite gate. The prince is also to come with the people come and leave. When they leave on the feast days and at the festival, the grain offerings will be half a bushel with each bull or ram, and whatever the worshiper wants to give with each lamb. 3 quarts of olive oil are to be offered with each half bushel of grain. When the ruling prince wants to make a voluntary worship offering to the Lord, either an offering to be burnt whole or a fellowship offering, the east gate is the inner courtyard will be opened for him. He is to make the offering in the same way he does on the Sabbath, and the gate is to be closed after he goes back out. The Lord says every morning a 1-year-old lamb without any defects is to be burned as whole as an offering to the Lord. This offering must be made every day. Also, an offering of 5 pounds of flour is to be made every morning, along with 1 quart of olive oil for mixing with the flour. The rules for offering to the Lord are to be able to be enforced forever. The lamb, the flour, and the olive oil are to be offered to the Lord every morning forever. The sovereign Lord commands, if the ruling prince gives any of the land he owns to one of the sons as a present, it will belong to that son as a part of his family property. But if the ruling prince gives any of his land to anyone who is in his service, it will become the prince's property again. When the year of restoration comes, it belongs to him, and only he and his sons can own it permanently. The ruling prince must not take any of the people's property away from them. Any land he gives to his sons must be from the land that is assigned to him, so that he will not oppress any of my people by taking their land. Then the man took me to the entrance of the rooms facing north near the gate of the south side of the inner courtyard. These are holy rooms for the priests. He pointed out a place on the west side of the rooms and said, this is the place where the priests are to boil the meat offered as sacrifices for sin or repayment offerings, and to bake the offerings of flour so that nothing holy is carried to the outer courtyard where it might harm the people. Then he led me to the outer courtyard and showed me that in each of its 4 corners there were small courtyards 68 feet long and 48 feet wide. Each one had a stone wall around it, and there was fireplaces built against the wall. The man told me these are the kitchens where the temple servants are to boil the sacrifices the people offer. Okay. 47, Ezekiel 47. the stream flowing from the temple. The man led me back to the entrance of the temple. Water was coming out from the under the entrance and flowing east, the direction the temple faced. It was flowing down from under the south part of the temple, past the south side of the altar. The man then took me out of the temple area by way of the north gate and led me around to the gate that faces east. A small stream of water was flowing out of the south side of the gate. With his measuring rod, the man measured 560 yards downstream to the east and told me to wade through the stream. There, the water came only to my ankles, and he measured another 560 yards, and the water came up to my knees. Another 560 yards further down, and the water was up my waist. He measured 560 yards more, and the stream was so deep I could not wade through it. It was too deep to cross. Except by swimming, he said to me, "Moral man, note all this carefully." Then the man took me back to the riverbank, and when I got there, I saw that there were only many trees on each bank. He said to me, "This is water flows through the land to the east and down into the Jordan Valley into the Dead Sea. When it flows into the Dead Sea, it replaces the salt water of that sea with fresh water. Wherever the streams flow there will be all kinds of animals and fish. The streams will make the water of the Dead Sea fresh, and wherever it flows, it will bring the life. From the springs of Engedi all the ways to the springs of Engalium, there will be fishermen on the shore of the sea, and they will spread out their nets there to dry. There will be as many different kinds of fish there as there are in the Mediterranean Sea, but the water in the marshes and ponds along the shore will not be made fresh. They remain there as a source of salt. On each bank of the stream, all kinds of trees will grow to provide food, and their leaves will never wither, and they will never stop bearing fruit, and they will have fresh fruit every month, because they are watered by the stream that flows from the temple. The trees will provide food, and their leaves will be used for healing. The boundaries of the land. The sovereign Lord said, "These are the boundaries of the land that is to be divided among the 12 tribes, with the tribes of Joseph receiving 2 sections. I solemnly promise your ancestors that I will give them possession of the land now divided equally among you. The northern boundary runs eastward from the Mediterranean Sea to the city of Haphian, to Hamas Pass, to the city of Zalak, to the cities of Bashad and Sarah. They are located between the territory of the kingdom of the Damascus and the kingdom of Hamath, in the city of Tycon, border of the district of Iranian. To the northern boundary run from the Mediterranean eastward to the Enoch city, with the border regions of Damascus and Hamath to the north of it. The eastern boundary runs south from a point between territory of Damascus and that of Haran, with the Jordan River forming the boundaries between the land of Israel and on the west and Gilead, the east as far as Tamar and on the Dead Sea. The southern boundary runs southwest from Tamar to the oasis of Kasha. I don't know how to say them words, it's too difficult. Kadesh Murdereth in the northwest. Along the Egyptian border of the Mediterranean Sea. The western boundary is formed of the Mediterranean and runs north to a point west of Hamas Pass. Divide this land among your tribes. It is to be your permanent possession. The foreigners who are living among you and have had children born here are also to receive their share of the land when you divide it. They are to be treated like full Israelite citizens and are to draw lots for shares of the land along with the tribes of Israel. All the foreign residents will receive their share with the people of the tribe among them, whom they are living. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken. So this is the last page. Ezekiel chapter 48. The northern boundary of the land runs eastward from the Mediterranean Sea to the city of Hedion, to the Hamath Pass, to Islam City, to the boundary between the kingdoms of Damascus and Hamas. Each tribe is to receive one section of the land. Extending from the eastern boundary west to the Mediterranean Sea, in the following order from the north to the south: Dan, Asher, Naphtali, Messiah, Ephraim, Reuben, and Judah. The special section of the city, sending the center of the land. The next section of the land is to be set apart for special use. It is to be 10 miles wide from north to south, and the same length from east to west as the sections given to the tribes. The temple will be located within the section. In the center of the section, a special area 10 miles, 8 miles is to be dedicated to the Lord. The priests are to have a portion of this holy area from east to west, their portion to measure 10 miles, and from the north to south 4 miles. The temple of the Lord is to be located in the middle of this area. This holy area is to be for the priests, who are descendants of Zadok. They served me faithfully and did not join the rest of the Israelites in doing wrong, as the other members of the tribe of Levi did. So they are to have a special area next to the area belonging to the Levites, and it will be the holiest of all. The Levites are also to have a special area south of that. Of the priests, it is to be 10 miles from the east to west by 4 miles from north to south. The area dedicated to the Lord is the best part of all the land, and none of it may be sold or exchanged or transferred to anyone else. It is holy and belonging to the Lord. The part of the special area that is left 10 miles and by 12 miles is not holy, but is for general use of the people. They may live there and use the land. The city is to be in the center of it. And it will be square 2,520 yards on each side, or around the city on each side. There will be an open space 140 yards across the land that is left after the city was built, in the area immediately to the south of the holy area, 4 miles by 2 miles on the east and 4 miles by 2 miles on the west. It's to be a sure use as farmland by the people who live in the city. Anyone who lives in the city, no matter which tribe he comes from, may farm that land. And so the total area in the center of section, which was set apart, will be a square measuring 10 miles on each side. And it will include the area occupied by the city to east and to the west of the area which contains the temple. The priests, the land, the Levites, the land, and the city of the remaining land belonging to the ruling prince. It reaches east to the eastern boundary and west to the Mediterranean Sea, and is bounded on the north by the section belonging of Judah, and on the south by the one belonging to Benjamin. Land for the other tribes south of this special section. Each of the remaining tribes is to receive one section of land running from the eastern boundary west to the Mediterranean Sea, in the following order from north to south: Benjamin, Simon, Issachar, Zebulun, and Gad. On the south side, a portion given to the tribe of Gad. The boundary runs southwest from Tamar to Ursus of Kadesh, in the northwest along the Egyptian border in the Mediterranean Sea. The sovereign Lord said that this is the way the land is to be divided into sections for the tribes of Israel to possess. There are 12 entrances in the city of Jerusalem. Each of the 4 walls measures 2,520 yards and has 3 gates in it, each named for one of the tribes. The gate in the north wall are named for Reuben, Judah, and Levi. Those in the east wall for Joseph, Benjamin, and Dan. Those in the south wall for Simon, Issachar, and Zebulun, and those in the west wall are named for Gad, Asher, and Naphtali. The total length of the wall on the fourth side of the city is 10,000 yards. The name of the city from now on will be "The Lord is Here." So that is the end of Ezekiel, and the next chapter is Daniel.